Good evening, ma'am. This is my video discussion about the module 10, which is the forensic ballistic. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Mark Jubin Bisoblimiti from Bachelor of Science in Criminology, 4th year Bravo. So, what is a forensic ballistic problem? The problem in a forensic ballistic are summary of the work objective in the field of firearm identifications. So, this serves as the general guide to every firearm examiner in determining the course of action to be undertaken independent of the situation at hand, and serve the end of justice. So this is the forensic ballistic problem. So the forensic ballistic problem originally composed of 6 problems, as writing in a book of Gunter and Gunter. However, complexity and advancement in the field of forensic ballistic in relations to the applicable laws, more particularly as regard to law on the illegal possession of firearms, so has emerged. As such, the firearm identification division adopted a 7 problem in its course. So this is it, the problem, the forensic ballistic problem. So number 1, the fired bullet, to determining the caliber, type, make of firearms from which it was fired. Then so number 2 is the fired shell or cartridge case, to determining the caliber, type, and make of firearms from which it was fired. Then number 3 problem, a fired bullet and suspected firearms, so to determine whether or not the fired bullet was fired from the suspected firearms. Number 4, a fired shell and a suspected firearms, so to determine whether or not the fired shell was fired from the suspected firearms. For the number 5, 2 or more fired bullets, so to determine whether or not they were fired from one and same firearms. For the number 6, 2 or more fired shells, cartridge cases, so to determining whether or not they were fired from one and the same firearms. For the last problem, the suspected firearms, to determine whether it is serviceable or not. So let us proceed for the basis of firearm identifications. For the number 1, firearm identification is actually referring to marks identifications. So the basis of the identification of firearm is based on minute or imperfections caused by final polishing of the tools involved. Number 2, the natural wear and tear of the tools involved, that every firearm are not permanent, for they are subject to deterioration or want out. For the number 3, where the softer surface come in the contact with the harder surface, so it is always the softer surface that will be engaged or engraved or marked by whatever impression or mark present on the harder surface. So this is the true in the sense that every firearm is made up of harder materials rather than any bullet or shell of the cartridge. For the number 4, the fact that no two things are absolutely identical or alike, that there can be some sort of a similarity in the general properties but not on the individual or a minute imperfection or details. So let us proceed for the principle involved in a bullet identification. So number 1, no two barrels are microscopically alike or identical as the internal board constructions. All barrel possesses the individuality or characteristic mark of their own. So number 2, when a bullet is fired from the rifle gun barrel, it becomes engraved by the rifling characteristic of the barrel with varying minute details. It means that the bullet fired from one barrel will have an engraving different from that another bullet fired from another firearms. So, and conversely, a bullet fired from the same firearm will bear same engraved as those that can be found on the barrel. So number 3, every barrel left its thumbprint rather, or a fingerprint on every bullet fired on it. Then the principles of shells identification. So this is it. Number 1 of the principle of shell identification. Number 1 is the breech space, and the screecher or a firing pin or a firing pin of every firearm have microscopic individualities of their own. So number 2, every firearm leaves it in a fingerprint or a thumbprint on every cartridge it fired. So yung may naiiwan na marka, either fingerprint or thumbprint. So number 3, the whole principle of identification of shell in the disc upon the fact that the breech space of every weapon must be individually distinct. The cartridge cases that it fired are imprinted with the individuality. So the imprint of all cartridge cases fired from the same weapon are the same, and those the cartridge cases fired from the different weapon also are different.